Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing good today. It is September 25th, 2025, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 today. And we just keep going with this amazing book of 1 Corinthians. Corinthians was a place that was kind of known as the Vegas of its day. And so those that came into the church certainly had their challenges of just kind of that old life, that it's hard to get rid of, right? Hard to remove. And so some really good stuff in this book. Anyway, welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Beau, that's my name right there, that French-Canadian name. It's right up there. A lot of vowels, but you can put that into the search area at youtube.com. And you can get to the channel, or you can go to beauwillette.com, and all the Devos are there listed, all the books of the Bible. You check it out, go through it with me. Super believe in just reading through the Bible, just getting through it, going through it. You learn so much. You learn, what the whole theme of the Bible is, why our world is the way it is, why we are the way we are, why we can't seem to get out of ourselves, why we can't seem to not be so self-absorbed and selfish and self-righteous and all that. You could just, it's all in there. A lot of the questions that you might have are answered in there if you just read it, if you just read through it. I didn't grow up reading the Bible. I didn't grow up around any religious text. And maybe early on in my teenage years, I got into more new agey kind of stuff. That's a Southern California kind of thing that we do, us SoCal folk. We call it being spiritual, and we kind of make up our own stuff as we go. And I certainly did that. But anyway, let's get into it. Hey, welcome. Let's do it. So it says, now regarding the question you asked in your letter, so you can see how personal this is. Paul's writing to a church which he was used by God to start, and there's been letters going back and forth. And it says, yes, it is good to abstain from sexual relations. Or it could be, it is good for man to not touch a woman. So to abstain from sexual relations. It's good. It says, but because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman should have her own husband. Notice just one. Uno, right? Not multiple, not polyamory, or polygyny, or polygamy, any form of multiple partners. One. And it says the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's sexual needs. Neat, right? The Bible talks about that we have sexual needs, and it's not wrong. Whoa, what a trip. I thought the Bible was against the sex thing. Man, God, guess what? It's not. Man, what an eye-opener is that, right? We all have biological needs, sexual needs. It says the wife gives authority over her own body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his own body to the wife. Notice it's not just one way. It's not just the wife gives authority. It's a volitional giving. It's not a forced giving. It's not your body is mine. It's a volitional giving of your body. Why? Because Jesus volitionally gives his life for you. He's not forced into it. He volitionally does it. Marriage, if you've read the first 4 pages of the Bible, you know that there's something very unique in marriage. It is a image bearing of the Creator. You might not have known that, but there is in a sense, a metaphysical component to marriage. It's not arbitrary. One man, one woman for life. There's purpose behind it. So it says a wife gives her authority volitionally to her husband, and the husband volitionally gives his body to his wife, right? No one has just total authority over the body. It is our bodies are God's, and then we volitionally give our bodies to our spouse in this covenant, this agreement called marriage. That is to glorify God. I don't get married because it's something I want to do per se. I just think it's really cool and it's a great arrangement and it's part of the government and I get taxes, maybe a benefit on my taxes, my tax bracket changes. Those are marriage in the image of the world, image of your society per se. But image of God, the marriage covenant that bears the image of the Creator, is one man, one woman, diversity with unity, university. And it says, do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourself more completely to prayer. Do I give myself completely to prayer when you have the sexual urge? Is that something that I think about? Like, hey, I need to go to God in prayer. See, a lot of times when we think of sexual lust, sexual desires, we tend to separate it from seeking God. And that's unfortunate. Instead of having those urges and then going to God and saying, hey, God, and then talking to God about it and the need for self-control, let's say, it's much more, I think, popular on the whole, even within a Christian culture, to separate sex from prayer, sex from God. Hey, I don't want to talk about sex because, if I talk about sex, I'm not going to be thinking about God. And if I talk about God, I'm not going to be thinking about sex. That's unfortunate. What that means is the sex relation, the biological part of your body, the sexual component, is a secular component only in your life. There is no, in a sense, sacredness to it. There is no bringing it before God. You've made it a secular event, so to speak. And it says, give yourself completely to prayer. Do I pray? I mean, it's a real challenge, right? Am I a prayer warrior in everything? Afterward, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Meaning because it's tough to remain, celibate, so to speak, especially when you're in a marriage relationship, it's a challenge. If your partner in marriage gets in an accident and they can't have sexual relations with you, you're going to need some self-control. And that is a challenge. And here it's very much shown to be a challenge because of your lack of self-control. Meaning we're very prone to lack self-control if we don't engage in intimacy with our spouse. It says, I say this as a concession, not as a command. It's something I'm giving advice to you on. Meaning it's not a command, it's not a thou shalt not, but it's some advice on your marital situation. It says, but I wish everyone were single just as I am, yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. Some people are single, some people aren't. And everybody's got their gift. Isn't that cool? Everybody's got a special gift. Do I look at that, kind of where people are at as a special gift? Or do I see my situation as better than them? I'm married. I've been married a long time. Do I boast in that and think that that's like the best out of everybody's situation and everybody better than anybody? And I shouldn't think that way because everybody has a special gift from God, one in this manner and one in the other. And then it says, but for those who are married, I have a command that comes not from me, but from the Lord. A wife must not leave her husband. But if she does, let her remain single or be reconciled to him, and the husband must not leave his wife. Okay, so we see some commands from the Lord. This is from Jesus. What is it commanded from Jesus? The command is this. Okay, a wife must not leave her husband. We're talking about believers here. But if she does leave him, let her remain single or be reconciled to him. So those are the options. If you're married and you're a believer and you get divorced, and for not any of the reasons that you are permitted to divorce, then you are to remain single for the rest of your life, or you can get back with your marital partner. And it says, then the husband also must not leave his wife. So it's vice versa, right? If the husband leaves the wife, or the wife divorces the husband divorces the wife, if it's not for any biblical permitted reason, then they are to remain single or be reconciled with their spouse. That's the options. That's what you got, right? And it says, now I will speak to the rest of you, though I do not have a direct command from the Lord. And so this is the Paul's commentary on Jesus. What did Jesus teach? Well, the basic thing was, if you guys are in the Lord and you're married, then and you divorce, then you either can get back together, and if you certainly there was no adultery or kind of abuse and all this stuff going on, then you have to remain single. You can't just go and marry again. That's a command from the Lord. That's a serious command, right? It says, now I'll speak to the rest of you, though I do not have direct command from the Lord. If a fellow believer has a wife who is not a believer and she is willing to continue living with them, he must not leave her. And if a believing woman has a husband who is not a believer and he is willing to continue living with her, she must not leave him. For the believing wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the believing husband brings holiness to his marriage. Otherwise your children would not be holy, but now they are holy. Okay, so there's a unique work that happens by one person in a marriage being a believer. Because they have this relationship with the Messiah, there is a bringing into that covenant and that family a wholeness, a holiness, kind of a presence of the Messiah there. And the children experience it, and the spouse experiences it that's not a believer, and it's beautiful. Hey, we don't know if our children are going to know the Lord, but there is a real potential there because of your belief in Messiah and his work in you through the Spirit. It's very cool. It says, but if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insist on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the believing husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called you to live in peace. So if the unbeliever says, you know what, I don't like this Jesus thing, man, you keep going to church and I'm not too into that, I'm out. And they divorce. That would be like a treacherous divorce. There's no really reason. They just abandon you, right? Well, then you're called to live at peace, right? And a lot of people understand that to be, you can, remarry at that point. That's debatable, once again, the idea of remarriage at that point, but some people do look at this and they see what's written here and they compare it to legal documents of that day that have very similar verbiage that say you're called to live at peace, that you're not bound by under such circumstances, as a legal way of writing that you can remarry. So there is some kind of little technicality there. But the idea is, okay, if they want to leave, they can leave. You're not bound to them anymore. You're not married to them anymore. They left you, And it says, don't your wives realize that your husbands might be saved because of you? And don't you husbands realize that your wives might be saved because of you? So you never know. You might be able to, through your relationship with your unbelieving spouse, bringing them to the Lord, but they might, resent you because of your faith in Jesus and leave. And if they do, let them leave. Now, in order to let someone leave, you got to be okay with just being by yourself in the Lord. And it might mean you're a single parent too, and that's difficult as well. And those are the challenges, no doubt. I've seen that in my life for sure. I do have 3 dads. And so I've seen a mom at times raise me and my brother as a single mom. I've seen my dad be a single dad, my biological dad, that is. And so, I've seen how that works. My mom remarried, of course, got 3 dads. My dad remained single for the rest of his life. And I must say, man, gosh, I really respect my dad for doing that. I mean, it was really a blessing for my brother and me to just have a dad who focused on his recovery, on investing in my brother and myself, and didn't bring in people into our lives. On the other hand, we had people brought into our lives through my mother's relationships. And believe me, it's had its challenges. Totally. Now it says, each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remain as you were when God first called you. So I love that. Each of you should continue in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remain as you were when God first called you. This is my rule for the churches. This is what I teach in the churches. He says, for instance, a man who was circumcised before he became a believer should try not to reverse it. And the man who was uncircumcised when he became a believer should not be circumcised now. You don't need to mess with that. And he says, for it makes no difference whether a man has been circumcised. The important thing is to keep God's commandments. The important thing is to look to God, to want to obey God, to want to trust God. And it says, yes, each of you should remain as you were when you were called. Are you a slave? Then don't let that worry you. But if you can get a chance to be free, take it. Right? Hey, if you're a slave, it's okay. Remain as you are. But if you can get free, man, take that. Yeah, the Christianity isn't about like, oh, I'm going to take abuse. Just abuse me, abuse me, abuse me. Let my enemies beat me, beat me, beat me. Oh, I'm so holy. Oh, it's so great. No, if you can get free, man, get free. Great practicality there, right? And it says, and remember, if you were a slave when the Lord called you, you are now free in the Lord. If you're still a slave under Rome, right? Rome had a lot of slaves. And slaves of all kind, people that were indentured servants, people that were doctors that worked for families were under this kind of slavery as well. There was many different occupations of slave. But he's saying that if you were one of these people who worked in this way, and the Lord called you, man, your eyes were open to Jesus. I love that. He picked up the phone and called you. Hey, by the way, you're going to be one of mine. Okay, got it. And it says you're free in the Lord. You might be a slave according to Rome, but according to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, you are free. And if you were free when the Lord called you, you are now a slave of Christ. God paid a high price for you, so don't be enslaved by the world. Each of you, dear brothers and sisters, should remain as you were when God first called you. Just be okay in where you're at. I love how he says that. That's what he's saying. Be okay where you're at. Are you okay where you're at? Is there an opportunity for you to be free from something that would really benefit you, give you freedom, help you to outreach more? Then go for it. But learn to be content in all situations. It says, now regarding your question about the young women who are not yet married, I do not have a command from the Lord for them. But the Lord in his mercy has given me wisdom that can be trusted, and I will share it with you. Because of the present crisis, persecution, I think it is best to remain as you are. If you have a wife, don't seek to end the marriage. If you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. But if you do get married, it is not a sin. Hey, under intense times, just remain as you are. Don't seek to be married and don't seek to get married or to get divorced. Just remain in the situation you're at. It's a difficult time. Persecution's on the scene. And that's the context here. And it says, and if a young woman wants to get married, it's not a sin. However, those who get married at this time will have troubles, and I'm trying to spare you those problems. If you're thinking of getting married right now, even in our culture, there's some trials. You are signing up for some super difficult times ahead. It's a difficult time to buy a house. It's a difficult time to make money. It's a difficult time in many, many ways. And, Paul says it's okay if you remain single, and it's okay if you marry. But just know this, if you do get married, you are going to face some unique challenges in our culture. And he says, but let me say this, dear brothers and sisters, the time that remains is very short. So from now on, those with wives should not focus only on their marriage. Those who weep or who rejoice or who buy things should not be absorbed by their weeping or their joy or their possessions. Don't get too caught up in everything, because you need to be looking up. The return of Christ. It says, those who use the things of this world should not become attached to them, for this world, as we know, will soon pass away. So don't get too caught up in everything. Hey, your marriage, great, but don't forget about the Lord's coming. Hey, you're into your motorcycles, you're into your skateboards, you're into your surfboards, you're into this, you're into that, you're into this, you're into travel, you're into whatever it is, going to the dunes, whatever it is. It's great, but don't forget that we are close to the end. Pay attention. It says, I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. But a married man who has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. Oh boy, right? You're starting to think about your wife all the time. Oh, I can't be here at work because I got to go see my wife. I got to go do this. My wife and this, and the kids over here and this over there, right? we all go, yep, I know what Paul's talking about. It says, verse 34, his interests are divided. And in the same way, a woman who is no longer married but has never been married can be devoted to the Lord and holy in body and in spirit. Notice it talks about men and women both being devoted to the Lord, both serving the Lord. There isn't just this one gender thing. No, it's both sexes able to serve the Lord equally, of great value, same value, amazing, right? But a married woman has to think about her earthly responsibilities and how to please her husband. So a man tries to please his wife, a woman tries to please her husband. It gets that complicated. And I am saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you, but I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best, with a few distractions as possible. But if a man thinks he is treating his fiancée improperly and will inevitably give into his passion, right? Some dude and some woman are, getting ready to be married and they're getting frisky. It says, let them marry, right? As they wish. It is not a sin. But if he has decided firmly not to marry and there is no urgency and he can control his passion, he does well not to marry. So the person who marries his fiancée does well, and the person who doesn't marry does even better. In Paul's estimate, right? A wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. A wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. And if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, but only if he loves the Lord. Wow. A wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. If you are married and you're believers and you get divorced, well, you are to remain unmarried or be reconciled to your husband, right? And you're bound to remain either or unmarried until someone dies. I mean, that's pretty radical. Unless the divorce is for a particular reason that's given in the Bible, where you're permitted to divorce. And then the person who was offended could remarry, but the person who was the offender cannot remarry. They are to remain unmarried or be reconciled to their spouse, but their spouse might be married by this time. So it says, but in my opinion, it would be better for them to stay single, and I think that I am giving you the counsel from God's Spirit when I say this. Beautiful. Isn't that wonderful? Man, great advice. Man, you really get an insight into spiritual counseling in chapter 7. I mean, what it's like to be under go into the office, and there's Paul the Apostle who's going to counsel you on relationships. Hey, you might not like some of the things that were revealed. Man, do I really need to stay single? I mean, man, is that really, I don't want to stay single. I don't want to. Well, you're going to have to pray and pray for self-control, right? And you're going to need to pray that you listen to the Lord, right? Paul says, not I, but the Lord says, Jesus. And so it's something that we're kind of going to have to deal with all these situations. Am I being lustful? Am I using my wife's body in a wrong way? Am I, allowing her to enjoy pleasure with me? Am I restricting my partner's right to have intimacy? Am I using sex as a control device in my marriage? I mean, there's a lot of counseling that is given by the Holy Spirit, the great counselor, right? The Messiah is the great counselor, right? His name shall be wonderful, right? Counselor. Yep. Almighty God, Prince of Peace. Yeah. So, man, what a cool chapter. If you're single, I would love for you to write in the comment corner just how you remain single in a pure way. How that works, what's your mind on, how you focus on that. And, that can always be a benefit to people who find themselves single, and for those that are married, put maybe how long you've been married, and what that's been like as well. That would be cool to read for sure. Okay, so you guys have a great day, okay? Man, thanks for joining me. 1 Corinthians 7 in the books. We'll talk to you guys later, okay? Bye-bye.